In this video I'm going to talk about two techniques, hammer-ons and pull-offs. They're two different techniques, but in my mind they're quite closely related. We're basically doing the same thing, but the result of what we're playing is either going for a higher note or a lower note. It'll make more sense when you see me do it, but that's just the reason why I've decided to cover them both together. So what am I talking about? When you first start playing, especially if you're new to guitar, one of the things that you learn is you use your fretting hand. In my case it's my left hand, to put in a certain position for the note that I want to play, and then in coordination with that I use my other hand, my picking hand, which for me is my right hand, to actually sound the string and make the string vibrate to make the noise. If you're working with open strings, obviously you're not going to play anything with your fretting hand. You can just pick an open string. In that case that's my E string, my first string. That's fine. I could use my fretting hand to play a note anywhere on the guitar. But you can see, as well as having my fretting hand finger in the right position on the correct fret, I'm also sounding the note every time with my picking hand. So I've got basically two jobs that I need to coordinate to play that note. I've got to put my finger in the right position for whichever note I want to play, and this could be anywhere on the guitar, on any string, on the fretboard, on any fret. In this instance I'm just going to keep it simple and keep it down here. Once you've played the note, once you put your finger in the right position to play the note, we actually have to pick the string for the note to play. So that's a traditional way of sounding basic notes on a guitar. There's many other ways, and these are two of the other ways that I'm going to cover now: hammer-ons and pull-offs. As I've said, you can play notes anywhere. For this exercise that I'm doing in this video, I'm just going to concentrate, just to make it simple, on two notes. I'm going to look at my third fret on my high E string, my first string, and my fifth fret on that same string. So these two notes. Second note's higher up, it's 2 frets higher up than the first note. Fairly straightforward, nice and slow, nothing to worry about there. With hammer-ons, this is the first technique I'm going to mention. Rather than picking both of those notes, what I'm going to aim to do is to pick the first of the notes but not the second one. So the note that's on my third fret, I want to pick that, but the second note that's on my fifth fret, that note, I don't want to pick that. So how am I going to make it sound without picking it? Well, the clue's in the name, and the hammer-on, I'm going to use another finger. So let's say in this example I'm playing with my first finger there. I'm going to stick with positioning discipline, so I'm going to use my third finger because that's what's above that fret, and I'm going to bring that finger down onto the string in the correct fret, on the fifth fret, and hopefully, if I get the technique right, my finger lands in the right place. By doing that, it will sound the second note for me without me having to pick the second note. So I'm going to pick the first note of the two notes, and then I'm not going to pick the second note. I'm going to bring my finger down onto it to hit the string, and that energy that I hit the string with using my other finger, that's going to sound the second note. So it should sound something like this. Why am I going to do that? The main reason for doing that, in terms of once you've learned a little bit more about playing, is that it just gives you a different sound to picking the two notes. When I pick the note, I've got quite a pronounced attack because I'm hitting the string, I'm plucking the string. Same with the other note. When I'm hammering on the second note that I'm playing, I haven't got that picking attack from my picking hand, so it gives it a slightly different sound for doing that. I'm just using my thumb to pick the notes at the minute. Whether I'm using my thumb, whether I'm finger picking and using a finger, or whether I'm using a plectrum, it makes no difference. Whichever way I'm picking the notes with my with this hand makes no difference to this technique. It's a completely technique for this hand. So using a finger, I can generate the same result, and it'd be the same with the plectrum. You can do this anywhere, not just on those two notes, but I'm just using those for the sake of simplicity. It's an acquired technique. You probably won't get it right the first time. What might happen is that you either miss the string with your finger, you might miss it completely and end up off the guitar. You might go the other way and hit the other string up. So it's just a case of practice hitting the note that you want to hit. Take your time, even if it's not sounding really pronounced as it should do. It's more important to concentrate on getting your finger to land in the right place. So if you think about what you already know about fretting your notes nice and close to the fret, fingertips, nice and clean, all those rules apply. So slow it right down, play the first note, and then try and make your other finger land in the correct place. It doesn't matter if you've got to stare at it and scan at it and make sure till you get started out. That's fine, that's what learning's all about. You can do that. You'll soon find, after you've done it a few times, that your hand automatically will land in the correct place, because it's no different, we're not doing anything different than if we was picking the two notes. Sometimes with a new technique, you sometimes feel inside you when you're a beginner that, oh, this is different, oh, it's not what I've been used to, but you're actually doing the same thing, but just generating that little bit of extra power with your other finger. Obviously, if you land your finger too high or too low on the string, you'll get a different effect. So if I go too high, I'll start hitting the fret there. If I go even higher, I'll get the next note up. Which is fine if you want the next note up, but for practice, let's just stick with these two notes, your 3rd fret and your 5th fret. They want to be sounding approximately the same sort of volume level. That's when you know that your technique's getting to where it wants to be. To start off with, you probably find your 2nd note isn't quite as loud because your finger strength might not be quite there. And it's just a case of getting used to how much pressure you need to put on to hit the other note to make it sound. So practice, you can do it anywhere on the guitar, on any of the strings, and try and get both of the notes to sound at the same volume and not be hitting the other strings and things that you don't want to hit. So that's hammer-ons in a nutshell. The other technique, pull-offs, is actually, if you had a mirror, it would be the opposite of this technique. So again, I'm going to play two notes on these same two frets, 3rd and 5th fret on my 1st string. Rather than playing the lowest note first, I'm going to start with the higher note. So I'm going to start with the note that's on my 5th fret, and I'm going to end up on the note that's on my 3rd fret. So if I was to play those two notes in sequence with a picking, it's the exact opposite of the hammer-ons I was just playing. Now, I can't hammer on because my fingers don't work that way. I'm trying to get lower down, not up or down, so not further up, sorry, not up or down. Brain fart. I'm trying to get lower down, not higher up. So from starting again, position discipline, I'm using my 3rd finger for the 1st note, and I'm going to use my 1st finger for the 2nd note. Rather than picking them both or plucking them both, I'm going to pick the 1st note, and then to sound the 2nd note, I'm going to pull off, which is where it gets its name from. I'm going to pull off my 3rd finger and just leave the note ringing in the 3rd fret. So. So as you can see, hopefully, it is the exact opposite of doing a hammer-on. So rather than going from the lower note to the higher note, we're going from the higher note to the lower note. I've found that a lot of beginners find, when I say beginners, people who've not played these techniques before, find the hammer-on easier than the pull-off. A couple of reasons for that. One is that the way we're built as people, we have a lot more strength closing our hand than opening it. We do it every day. We grab door handles, we grab shopping bags, we grab car steering wheels, we pick things up. We're used to grabbing with our hands, that's what we're designed for. We're not used to using muscles to open our hand. So when we're playing a hammer-on, I'm actually closing my hand. Doesn't really look like it, it looks like I'm just moving a finger, but the muscles I'm using is the same as if I'm closing that finger in on something. So that's quite natural for humans to do. With a pull-off, I'm going the opposite way. I'm releasing the pressure and bringing my finger up, which is an action that we're not normally used to doing in everyday life. As a guitar player, it's something that you do develop over time, and the strength, the feel for it will come. You might find when you first start doing it that your first note sounds great, but then you get sometimes it doesn't quite sound as it should do on the second note. Again, it's just practice in terms of doing a slightly different movement than what you're normally used to doing. Technique for doing the pull-offs, one of the things that I've been told, and is you're quite often told when you're looking at lessons and demonstrations of this, is that rather than just pulling your note completely up, lifting it off straight up, it can be useful sometimes to give the note just a slight little flick, so not really a pluck, but when you're pulling the note off, just slight sideways movement. It'll probably be difficult for you to see on here, but rather than just lifting the note straight up away from the string, I've done a little, almost. I don't want to say plucking it with this finger because that's too strong an action. I'm not plucking it. I'm just moving slightly sideways, which just gives the string a little bit more energy to ring for the second note. So if you're struggling to make it sound, then that's something that you might want to look at as well. I've always found that these techniques always sound a lot clearer on an electric guitar because you've got the sound of the amplifier that gives you a little bit of extra what we call compression in the sound, and that helps the notes to be more of a consistent volume level. For that reason, that's why I decided to record this on an acoustic guitar, because if you can do it on an acoustic guitar, you'll be able to do it easily on an electric guitar, and also this makes it accessible to everybody that's maybe only has an acoustic guitar, doesn't have the option of playing on electric. So that's hammer-ons and pull-offs. The basic concept of it is not having to pick every single note. We can generate notes sometimes without picking them. Just follow on slightly from there to take it into a slightly more advanced level. You can do hammer-ons and pull-offs, combine them with each other indefinitely actually. So if I wanted to, let's use the same notes, my 3rd fret, my 5th fret, I'll do a hammer-on and a pull-off in the same action. So I'm going to play 3 notes but only pick once. So I've got 3 notes there. I've got a hammer-on to begin with. Sorry, I've got to pick the note to begin with. Then I'm hammering on to my 2nd note, and I'm pulling off to my 3rd note. To do the same thing in reverse, start with the higher note, using the same 2 frets. I'm going to pick the 1st note, I'm going to pull off down to the 2nd note, and then hammer back on to the 3rd note. So that's 3 notes just by picking once. You can do the hammer-ons and pull-offs as many times as you want to in the same phrase of music. So if you wanted to, you could actually keep that going all day. Just keep playing the hammer-on and pull-off, hammer-on and pull-off, and as long as you've got the strength in your fingers and the accuracy, you'll be able to keep that going as long as you want to. The technique for that is actually called a trill. We're playing two notes, one after the other consecutively repeated, without picking them. So a basic trill using those two notes, 3rd and 5th frets. I'll start with a pick, then a hammer on. So my picking hand's now doing nothing. As long as my other hand's behaving, I can continue doing that as long as I want. Again, like a lot of exercises, that doesn't sound very musical at all. You probably won't want to listen to it for too long. But it's good to be able to get the strength up in your hand to do that. Once you get used to these techniques, the trill is quite often used in faster pieces to give you a bit of a speed advantage. So that type of thing, rather than having to pick every note, which is going to be a lot of hard work, especially with your fingers. I might be able to do it with a pick, but it'd be difficult with the fingers. Just one step up from there, because the trill is two notes that we're playing without picking each time. The next step up from there, probably the final step in this type of playing, is something called legato. What's different between that and a trill is that rather than just playing the two notes, we play a number of notes on the guitar, but without using picking. As an example, that is quite more of an advanced technique to learn. But just as an example, there's a piece that I've been working on for my own personal practice at the minute that includes a little phrase that's got some legato in it, and it's in this type of position, and it's 8 notes, but I only actually pick 3 times. So the first 5 notes I think are on my E string, the next 3 are on my B string, and if I was to pick them all, it'd be something like those are the notes in sequence and in time. It's quite a bit faster than that, the piece that I'm trying to have a go at, but I was picking every note there. So I'm playing 8 notes and I'm picking 8 times. The way that it's actually played on the original that I'm playing is that there's still the same 8 notes that I'm having to create with my fretting hand, but I'm only going to pick 3 times. So I'll try and do it. It is an electric piece. I'll try and do it on here and see if you can see how much less picking I'm having to do to generate the same pattern. So this is that same thing I've just played, but using legato picking, which just means that we're combining hammer-ons and pull-offs together to reduce how much picking we have to do. So again, it's an electric guitar piece. Doesn't sound great on here. Once you get it up to speed, that's the reason that I've been using that technique to do it, is to be able to get it a little bit faster than what I perhaps might be able to do picking, or just make it easier to play. I build it up, start off slowly and build it up, just like I always say to you. Play it at a pace you're comfortable with, and then build it up. So. Losing a couple of notes there, just try with the plectrum. So hopefully you can see that I've literally just picked 3 notes out of the 8, and the rest of them have been played using hammer-ons and pull-offs. I'm not going to cover that lick at this point. It's just a demonstration of one of the things that you can do using those techniques. So I'll start with the simpler ones, just the basic 3 and the 5. The hammer-ons or the pull-offs. Works on every string. Work on your accuracy, make sure that's good. The finger technique and the muscle memory will come. That's an alternative way of playing notes without having to pick every single one. Hammer-ons and pull-offs.